This is ABC 6 News at 11.
A longtime pastor at a church in Providence arrested for child molestation. Police think there may be more victims.
Plus, part of Allen's Ave still blocked off tonight more than 21 hours after a tanker carrying ethanol derailed. Just ahead, an update on its removal. And confusion over tax refunds in Massachusetts after money deposited in bank accounts was unexpectedly withdrawn. Those stories are coming up in moments, but first, our top story tonight. We're now hearing from the former colonel of the state police after the current colonel pointed fingers and second-guessed how the state police interviews of the 38 Studios investigation were handled. Colonel Osumpico revealed many of the interviews were not recorded, and she says she would have done things very differently. ABC 6 News reporter Kirsten Glavin is live tonight with comments from former Colonel Stephen O'Donnell and more on the candid comments from Colonel Osumpico. Kirsten.
John, Christina, Colonel O'Donnell told me the decision not to tape all of the interviews was intentional and every case is different. Colonel Osumpico placing blame on the previous state police administration, saying someone ordered investigators to stop recording their interviews in the 38 Studios case.
That's not the way I expect investigations to be handled under my command.
That administration under Colonel Stephen O'Donnell. Wednesday night, Colonel O'Donnell explained by way of text message the reasoning behind it. He wrote, investigators held pre-interviews, and if the person in question didn't have something of substance to offer, the interview didn't need to be taped. He added, it was my understanding that most of the legislative members spoken to had nothing to offer beyond a vote. Attorney General Peter Kilmartin was one person whose interview was not recorded. He was a representative when the General Assembly voted on a bill that funded 38 Studios.
It's my understanding the investigators were told at the time that Mr. Kilmartin had already been interviewed by a member of the previous administration.
All interviews with the Senate also not recorded. Everything was summarized instead, according to the chief investigative officer.
There's a summary of the overall theme of what was said and what wasn't said. That's basically the summary we have. We don't have specifics for each interview or each non-interview.
Some interviews were done over the phone as opposed to in person, but even with the lack of records, state police say nothing about the outcome of this case would have changed.
If we could have pressed charges against somebody, believe me, we would have, but we just didn't have it.
I may question some aspects of how the investigation was handled based on the little that I have been seeing to date. I have not seen nor heard any evidence that would cause me to reopen the criminal investigation.
Colonel Osumpico said some people, including Kurt Schilling, have questioned why key players like Gordon Fox, Michael Corso, and William Murphy were not interviewed. She says that they were asked for an interview but denied, and legally that's okay. She says in the future, however, phone interviews are not something she really wants to continue with. Live at the State House, I'm Kirsten Glavin, ABC 6 News.
Kirsten, thank you. Let's get checking the forecast now with Chief Meteorologist Jeff Benoit live in the Weather Center. And after we get past tomorrow, Jeff, I guess winter is letting us know it hasn't left just yet.
I totally agree with that assumption right there. I think as we go into the day tomorrow, if you like temperatures in the 40s, savor tomorrow, because after tomorrow, we may not see 40s again until the end of next week. Very cold air setting up as we go into Friday and the weekend. Right now, though, it's not all that bad outside, and we got a few clouds. It's a little breezy, but the temperatures are still really mild after daytime highs today that well into the 50s to near 60 degrees. 58 in Providence, 58 in New Bedford, 57 for Westerly and Newport, and we did that with a good deal of sunshine throughout the afternoon. And through the evening, temperatures are still in the mid-40s. This is about where our normal highs should be this time of year. So it's incredibly mild right now throughout the evening hours, and besides the breeze, it actually turned out to be a pretty nice evening and dry, even though there's some rain showers to our north. Said back at 5 and 6 that those showers would remain north of the Mass Pike, and they have behaved nicely, and therefore we will stay dry tonight and keep the skies generally clear, just a few clouds. So when you wake up tomorrow for that morning commute, mostly sunny, a bit of a breeze, temperatures 35 to 40, and that breeze stays with us throughout the day, and we'll keep the sunshine around. And today, temperatures were in the 50s. Tomorrow, we're in the 40s. But as I mentioned, that'll be the last time we touch 40 degrees for quite some time. We're talking about a blast of cold air in time for the weekend. And we still have to talk about some snow chances as well. I'll have all the details for you coming up in your full weather forecast.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. And now back to a story that we've been following. The man who brutally and randomly stabbed a young Rite Aid worker in Warwick admitted in court today he knew exactly what he was doing. Today, the judge deemed 41-year-old Jacob Gallant competent to face charges and ordered him to undergo a mental health evaluation. Gallant told police he bought a butcher knife and planned on stabbing the first person he saw. That person, 18-year-old Rite Aid employee Alyssa Garcia. Police say Gallant stabbed her at least 8 times on Sunday before 2 men jumped in to help.
I am here because I attacked a young woman the other day.
You're charged with, you're alleged to have attacked a woman.
Correct.
Gallant is now charged with intent to murder and is being held on bail. Garcia is in stable condition at the hospital.
A longtime pastor at a church in Providence arrested for child molestation, and because of his size, police think he used force on the child. They also think there could be more victims. ABC 6 News reporter Bianca Bono has a story.
On the Legions of Christ website, Pastor Roy Bolden Jr. is described as a religious man who encourages and helps the youth of Providence. But on Friday, a 21-year-old man who was Bolden's Bible study student went to police with disturbing details about his teacher.
He was the victim of child molestation from the time he was 12.
The man says Bolden molested him for 6 years until he was 18.
Finally, he felt the need to come forward. And after you hear the facts, it just makes it that much more difficult also.
Police say he was molested inside Bolden's home, and because the 33-year-old weighs over 400 pounds, he likely used force on the child.
We did talk to one other witness who corroborated some of the facts.
Bolden was arrested Tuesday night, and on Wednesday, he was charged with first and second-degree child molestation and third-degree sexual assault.
Once it goes to the Attorney General's office, there will be more charges.
Police say Bolden is still associated with the church to this day, and now they're asking the public to spread his mugshot to see if there are other victims out there.
We are going to sit with members of the church, and we will see if that produces, and hopefully not, but if it produces any more victims.
Reporting for ABC 6, I'm Bianca Bono.
A fire in Mansfield sends an elderly woman to the hospital with serious injuries. It happened at a multifamily home on East Street around 4 o'clock. Firefighters found the elderly woman in the basement suffering from smoke inhalation and serious burns. She was med-flighted to Rhode Island Hospital. The cause of that fire is still being investigated. And in Lincoln, a father and son are displaced tonight after a fire that started in their garage spread to their home. It happened just after 7 o'clock on Cedar Path Road. No one was home at the time, but the owner was nearby. The fire is still under investigation. Meanwhile, the fire department is working with the Red Cross to provide for the family while they are displaced.
A potentially hazardous situation in Providence this morning after a tanker car derailed on Allens Avenue. Even at this hour, lane restrictions are still in place because the tanker car is still in the road. Hazmat crews, DEM, police, and fire all there today. The train was carrying 80 cars on the way to nearby fuel distributor Motiva Enterprises. Now, inside that derailed car, 30,000 gallons of ethanol, which is extremely flammable and explosive. We're told none of it leaked out.
There was car the tanker is projecting out into halfway out into this first lane, so it was very fortunate there was no cars on the road.
Now, investigators are still looking into exactly how the car came off the tracks. Crane is on its way from New York to lift the car back up onto the tracks. We do want to let you know if you'll be in that area tomorrow morning, be prepared for potential delays. One man taken to the hospital tonight after his car crashed into a pole in East Providence. It happened on North Brow Street around 9. The crash caused power lines to drop right on top of a tractor trailer. National Grid had to remove the live wires from the truck. No power outages, though, were reported in that area. Police say alcohol and speed do not appear to be factors. The cameras are back on in the Aaron Hernandez double murder trial. They were shut off yesterday after Hernandez's attorney said jurors could be seen in some monitors in the courtroom. The judge issued a stern warning to members of the media before starting back up this morning. On the stand today, one of the men who survived the shooting. He detailed the final moments of his friends inside of the car. The jurors also saw surveillance video from outside of the nightclub.
Former state rep Ray Gallison will face a judge tomorrow in federal court for a change of plea hearing. In January, Gallison pleaded not guilty to stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars in both private and public funds. That included money from a dead man's estate, as well as money from charities and nonprofits. Gallison faces 9 federal charges. Tomorrow, he's expected to change his plea to guilty. There's also a possibility Gallison may be sentenced tomorrow. He faces at least 2 years in federal prison on just one of those charges. A clothing store owner in Cranston arrested for selling counterfeit merchandise. This comes after police raided Lit Fashions on Park Avenue. They say 37-year-old Wade Brown was selling knockoffs of brands like Nike, Polo, North Face, Louis Vuitton, Ray-Ban, and many others. In total, $20,000 worth. Brown was arraigned on several charges, including forgery and alteration of a trademark. He was released, though, on $5,000 personal recognizance.
New at 11 tonight, plastic bags are a thing of the past in another Rhode Island city. City councilors in Newport unanimously voting tonight to ban the use of plastic bags. Newport is now the second place to ban plastic bags in the state. Barrington was the first. The city is giving stores until November 1st to stop using the bags.
Women across the country and in our area skipped work today as part of the National Day Without a Woman protest. Providence Mayor Jorge Elorza allowed all female staffers to use a personal day to go to that protest. And as a result, the city's municipal court was closed because it was understaffed. Today's cases will now have to be rescheduled. Organizers of the protest say that they hope it will call attention to social inequalities that many women face, including lower wages and gender discrimination. Today's protest coincides with International Women's Day, which each year falls on March 8th. A meeting held tonight by Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea to improve the election system in Rhode Island. Some of the problems that were discussed were long wait lines on Election Day and post-election audits. This was the second out of 3 scheduled meetings on those topics. State and local election officials were there, as well as registered voters who were all able to voice their concerns. Still to come tonight on ABC 6 News at 11. Just imagine this, getting your tax refund and then realizing the money suddenly vanished from your account. Well, that's exactly what happened to thousands of taxpayers in Massachusetts. What went wrong? Just ahead.
Plus, controversy in Boston after members of a veterans group are told they can't walk in the St. Patrick's Day parade.
And the state tournament for high school girls basketball starts tonight. Coming up in sports, Nick Coit has the Sweet 16 highlights.
And as we go to break, we want to let you know New Bedford's Mayor John Mitchell, will deliver his annual State of the City address tomorrow afternoon. It'll be hosted by the New Bedford Area Chamber of Commerce. If you can't be there and you do want to see it, ABC 6 will be streaming the mayor's speech beginning at 1 o'clock on abc6.com.